Welcome back, everybody, to Neutrality Studies. Tonight, again, with the one and only Larry Johnson. Larry, welcome.
Tonight. So are you're back in Europe?
No, I'm just adjusting to your time zone.
Oh, well,
Sin-
hey, it's somewhere it's morning, somewhere it's night.
it's my coffee time here in Japan. But before we get started, I just want to show everybody that you too now have this wonderful YouTube channel in English called Transition Protocol, and you also have translated channels right here. Transition Protocol now also exists in Spanish, it exists in German, it exists in Chinese, Japanese. So any one of you, if you're listening to this recording on neutrality studies in any other language but English, and you're interested in getting subscribing to Larry's channel, please check out the translation channel links that will be in the description box below. You can follow him there. Larry and Pepe, they are doing this wonderful channel, Transition Protocol, together with your host, Mr. Z, right, Larry?
Right. And we were supposed to do one today, but I've got, because of events and surgical experience for Dr. Z, we'll do it tomorrow. So we'll be on air tomorrow.
Right. So
Which is Thursday afternoon in the East Coast and Friday morning in Japan.
Exactly, Friday morning in Japan. And by the time the video will go up, it will probably be my afternoon, but that's it. Just again, if you're listening to this in Spanish, in German, or in any other language, you can find Larry's translated channel with Pepe Escobar on Transition Protocol. This is the Spanish version, there's a German version, and so on. The links will be in the description box below. And now let's start with our discussion, because a lot happened, Larry, didn't it? The US is trying to bomb Iran again.
Yeah. Well, the United States is in total, complete violation of the MOU. They violated the first paragraph. I keep emphasizing that people need to read the MOU and look specifically at paragraph 5 of that MOU, because paragraph 5 stipulates that Iran, in fact, let me just read it briefly. Upon signing of this MOU, the Islamic Republic of Iran, notice it doesn't say anybody else, doesn't say US, doesn't say Qatar, Saudi Arabia, no other Gulf country. Just simply says the Islamic Republic of Iran will make arrangements using its best efforts for the safe passage of commercial vehicles with no charge for 60 days only through the Strait of Hormuz. So no other country is given that responsibility. And what did Iran do? Iran created what are called the Persian Gulf Strait Authority Protocols, PGSA. It's a website, and that if you have a ship that's going to transit the Strait of Hormuz, whether going in or coming out, go online, fill out the application. They want to know the name of the ship. They want to know the name of the ship's captain. They want to know the country that owns the ship. They want to know what the cargo is on the ship. They want to know what the nationality of the crew is. So, and in those protocols, Iran specifically says that, let me give with regard to compliance, only vessels submitting compliant requests and receiving PGSA approval are permitted to transit. That applies to the whole strait. Ships must follow designated Iranian routes and instructions. Non-compliance, deviation, or lack of permission may result in denial of passage or forceful response. So yesterday, Iran exercised forceful response on 4 ships that were trying to sneak through the Omani lane in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran did what it is entitled to do under this MOU, under this protocol. And Then the United States proceeded to violate the protocol by or the MOU, because in the first paragraph of the MOU, it says that the United States and Iran declare immediate permanent termination of military operations and undertake from now on not to initiate any war or military operation against each other. Well, the United States initiated a military operation against Iran. The MOU also said, and to refrain from the threat or use of force. Again, Trump spent the entire day making threats against Iran. So I, for the life of me, don't know why Iran doesn't just follow Trump's lead and say, "Oh, this thing is dead. This MOU no longer applies," because the United States, also in violation of the MOU, has now reinstated sanctions, oil sanctions on Iran.
When did they reinstate those? That's pretty fresh, right? Because they lifted them
Yeah,
for a short while.
yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah, yesterday. They gave a window, like a 9-day window, so it will go into full effect on the 17th. But they now say, no, we're withdrawing. Those sanctions we waived, well, they're back in effect.
My best
I
guess here is that the Iranians, they know exactly what they're gonna do. The response is already clear. The response is underway, right? They have fired back again at U.S. outposts in the Gulf, and they're just gonna wait until the temper tantrum blows over, because I don't think the United States has much that it can do, has it?
Well, it's not, even though the press is playing up these strikes that have taken place yesterday and today as big strikes. I've heard from somebody who was involved at the planning of the strikes during the first 42 days of the war, and he just said, he said, we're not even close now to doing what we did during the full blown war. So while it looks bad and it's reported in the most alarming terms possible, it's not as bad. In fact, let me read you. He just specifically said that so far we're doing a very small campaign, if you can even call it that. This is nothing compared to the first 40 days. And to top it off, as I reported before, around June 17th, the United States, they deactivated the CATs, the crisis action teams. So these were 24/7 operations. They started about a week before the invasion or the attack on Iran on the 28th of February. So the crisis action teams set in the operations centers at places like Pentagon, National Military Command Center, at the CENTCOM. They have an operations center at JSOC. Once they stand up those cats, they operate 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Well, now they're only operating 8 to 5. So the United States has not gone back to an actual war footing.
Hey, just a very quick note. The best way to support this channel is by signing up for my free Substack. You can also help with a paid subscription there, or you can get some of our new merch on neutralitystudies.com. Links below. See you there. So, for all intents and purposes, this should be interpreted as another one of just a violent form of negotiation tactics in that case. It's like slamming the door or something like that.
A little bit, but I think Iran's got to send, in my own view, Iran needs to send a very strong message to the United States. And you've got your tankers that are facilitating these. They're at Ben Gurion Airport. They need to take out those tankers at Ben Gurion Airport. Supposedly, some of the tankers landed in Al Udeid Air Force Base. Take those out. Any place a U.S. tanker is, destroy it, because you destroy those, you destroy the ability of the United States to refuel combat aircraft that are then able to attack Iran.
Tanker aircraft, the ones that refill in midair.
Correct.
Okay.
But like the F-35 jet as an example.
Do we know that do the Iranians have the capability to locate these things, or I mean, because they're not I mean, they're big planes, but they're not that huge targets.
Yeah, but when they're on the ground, I'm talking about destroying them on the ground before they even take off, and they know exactly where those are.
So, do you think that the trigger for this was that Iran was with force trying to prevent the United States from opening a second channel that bypasses the Iranian this Iranian controlled channel, or what was the strategy of the US there?
Well, the U.S. is trying to make it into an issue to claim that Iran is violating the MOU, which, as I've read to you, they clearly did not. Everything they've done in terms of enforcing compliance with the PGSA that they put in place in tandem with the signing of the MOU, they've been in compliance. And the United States took it upon itself, said, no, you don't get to control what goes through the Strait of Hormuz. We get to control. Sorry. Paragraph 5 says very explicitly, Islamic Republic of Iran, doesn't say Islamic Republic of Iran in consultation with the United States, does not say that. So the U.S. is just declaring that it's got the right to do it, and it's doing it.
What's your assessment about the situation for the economy? I mean, the Strait at the moment, as far as I didn't hear that it is closed again. The Iranians, it is, as far as I know, didn't announce that nobody can pass through. But do we know how many ships are going through now? How much is that in comparison to before the war?
Yeah, it's still not up. It's still not up to pre-war levels. Right now, they're going through the Strait on the Iranian channel. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ships headed out, and I count 1, 2, 3 headed in. So the small activity, and those, let's see, those that are headed out are one is called the Iolcus Ambition, which is a bulk carrier, and that's going reportedly to Oman. I got the Yaran, which is a container ship. Destination is not available. The Berg One, how about that? That's a crude oil tanker. It's going to Singapore. So you've got, let's see, what's this one? The Jan Lucky chemical oil products tanker. It's going to the UAE. The Gas Warwich, it's an LPG tanker. It's going to Singapore.
Okay, so overall, I mean, the good news for the world economy is that the strait is operational, right? But this is, of course, I mean, if these strikes now continue, if the United States and Iran, I mean, this could be over tomorrow again, right?
Well, now here's the problem. So number one, those tankers that are there, they're not going to reach port for 40 days.
Right.
So the shortage that exists now, it's not being fixed. They have to wait for those tankers to arrive. The really big problem, and I keep, I've been fortunate to, a couple of different people have reached out to me and explained this. The United States is a net importer of sour crude. So and the reason it needs the sour crude is that the majority of the refineries that are there on the southern coast along the Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico, they are specifically set up to process sour crude. They can't just give them sweet crude. They can still produce aviation and diesel fuel. No, it's the equipment set up in an entirely different way. So the United States still is without that oil, and that's what Trump was talking about 4 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago when he said we're going to be out of oil in 4 weeks. That's what he was referring to.
So but in this sense, now slamming the door and pretending that he's walking away from the negotiations, even with a couple of strikes, that is not really going to serve the purpose of resolving the issue for the US, is it?
Well,
So
exactly.
it's
No,
just going to leave him
exactly
in a
right.
weaker position.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. This Iran at this point would be completely entitled to say, no, we're walking away. Now, reportedly, all uh, Pakistan and the Saudis and others are scrambling, trying to give Iran the assurances that they need in order to keep the what limited traffic's going through to keep that going. Because if it stops, then Saudis would like to get some cash flow. So would Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain. Um, but if Iran decides to close it down, and I don't think Iran will. I think what Iran's going to do, continue to enforce the protocol and for its friends. Let's call it the friends and family program. If you're a friend of Iran, if you're not sided with the United States and Israel, your ship gets to go through, no problem. If you're sided with the U.S., like if you're Western European, uh, then you, or Israel, you don't get to go through. So they'll shut that down.
I talked to Mohammed Marandi yesterday, and he said, yeah, I mean, it's now not going to be an on and off situation. It's going to be a faucet, right? More open and less open. And as you just put it, with this new administration that they have in place, they actually don't need to communicate with the US anymore, right? They can just communicate to anyone who wants to pass through, and then if we grant it because we're on good relations, sure, you can go, no problem. And if you try to sneak through the other side, well, and you're not a friend, then we're gonna shoot at you. Period. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's Iran. There's no sign yet that Iran's going to stop doing what the United States is objecting to. And I think we have not yet seen the Iranian retaliation to tonight's strikes. Uh, they're going to come. I don't know if they're going to wait till the burial of the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and Bashad. So the body was the four bodies, Khamenei, his wife, his daughter-in-law, and his granddaughter. Those being transported out to Mashhad, and that's 1,000 miles to the east.
right, and were you surprised that a part of the follow-up negotiations are happening in Qatar? We've had Pakistan, we've had one thing happening in Switzerland, and now some of these talks also happening in Qatar. That I was surprised that it's happening there. But what do you make out of it?
Well, my understanding is Iran didn't show up for those talks,
Mm.
so they left Qatar talking to itself with the United States, but Iran just said no, we're not showing up. So that's a problem. I think Qatar's, particularly in light of the fact that Qatari-owned ships and the Qatari-owned ship and the Saudi-owned ship tried to transit the strait yesterday without, in violation of the compliance. So that wasn't an act of good faith by Qatar, and that supposedly some of these air refueling aircraft used to attack Iran were based out of Al Udeid Air Force Base.
Right. Um, on the other hand, we've seen that Saudi Arabia actually sent a delegation to the funeral of Khamenei, and Marandi yesterday said it was of the level of a deputy secretary, so basically below the ministerial level, but fine, good enough.
Yeah.
Do you think that Iran is now trying to work with the Gulf states? Because one option might be to convince the Gulf states, look, you've got to kick out the Americans.
Well, it's not just Iran. Pakistan reportedly is carrying that message to all of them and encouraging that. The thing the U.S. has dramatically reduced its presence at Al Udeid, but they're still using it as an airfield. And so far, Iran didn't strike the airfield yesterday, and I think they should. They need to make the United States pay a price.
Mhm. Then again, like airfields are easy to strike, but also not that difficult to fix, right?
Right. So it's not just if you crater the airfield, yeah, they can fill those in. But then you go after the hangars,
Right.
you go after the air traffic control tower, you go after the buildings. That's where you want to do the damage.
Right, right, right. Okay, so overall on Iran, the assessment that the United States is digging itself deeper into a hole, while at the same time now being in Ankara at the NATO summit, although Donald Trump looked very reluctant to be there, but in the end he was. What's your take at what's coming out of Ankara now?
The chaos within the ranks. The funniest moment I thought was when Trump said that, "Oh yeah, we're gonna give Ukraine all the parts to build the Patriot 3 missile. You guys build it." The United States can't build it either because they don't have the rare earth minerals. They're lacking critical ingredients. So no matter how much they've set up infrastructure to produce it, it's like, hey, I got my oven turned on and we're all ready to bake that cake. Uh, do you have any flour and eggs? No, no, but we're ready to bake the cake. Okay, good. As soon as you get that flour and eggs, let me know. So, and that's the situation they're in now. They've got, uh, they don't have the flour, they don't have the eggs. They just got the structure.
Yeah, it's kind of it's another bizarre moment because at the same time we've got, of course, the probably I mean not probably, I mean we have an escalation with the war in Ukraine, right? The Ukrainians are also firing like massive amounts of drones into Russia, although by now they're doing less damage than before, so the Russians are getting better at intercepting those. And the on the battlefield in the Donbass, Russia is now very close actually to consolidation of that territory, aren't they?
Well, back in 2022, Russia and the people of the Donbass, they controlled about 55% of the territory. Now, the two remaining big cities, Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, that accounts for about 5% of Iranian territory or of the Ukrainian territory. So basically, they've taken 95%, and they're likely to finish off that other 5% here. Uh, could be as soon as end of August or September, because the news reports came out today that uh, contact between Ukrainian troops and the Russian troops was at a power plant, which is just on the outskirts of Slavyansk. So the Russians are moving now much faster, and part of that is because, as Peskov has said, literally 2 days in a row, this is no longer about a special military operation. This is a war.
Yeah.
So Russia's calling it now a war instead of a special military operation.
Yeah, and Alexander Mercurius on his channel was pointing that out, how significant this is that the spokesperson for Mr. Putin, who has always remained very loyal and faithful to what Mr. Putin was saying and wanted to do, that he's now calling this a war, and especially pointed out it's not an military operation anymore. And we remember at the beginning of 2022, when the SMO started, actually calling it a war is something that could get you into prison in Russia, right? They explicitly wanted to avoid calling it a war, and they put everybody on notice that you must not call it a war, otherwise you're liable for what not it is. But so this is a significant change. Do you think that they are going to now enlarge the entire campaign? Because I mean, once the Donbass is consolidated, you need to do something with the rest, right? Something
Right.
needs to happen with these places from which drones and missiles keep flying.
Well, in fact, they've already expanded the war, or I would say are on the war footing. You go back and look in 2023, the Russians were operating, they were conducting one main operation. That was the capture of Bakhmut. That was followed in from 2023 into 2024, the capture of Avdiivka. Uh, then from 2024 going into 2025, the capture of Pokrovsk. So they were only doing like 1 to 2 major operations like a year or at a time. Now they got 6 major operations underway. They're advancing the Sumy to the north, Kharkiv in the northeast, then Donbass in Donetsk in particular, and then Dnipropetrovsk. They're advancing. In fact, they've already put a contingent of Russian soldiers on the west bank of the Dnieper River, which the river basically bisects Dnipropetrovsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. Uh, and they've got offensives underway in Zaporizhia and Kherson. So uh, it's a 6. They're attacking along 6 axes right now.
What do you interpret what the Russians might actually want to do? I've had other people on this channel who are saying that probably they're thinking about a bit more territory on the one hand, Odessa, probably for sure, but then a pretty long buffer zone, and then something that's left over that contains all the Western Ukrainian, let's call them ultra nationalists over there. What do you think is the end game for Russia? Because there needs to be a strategy to wind this down, right? That would be the goal for the Russians. I mean, bring the fighting to an end.
Well, they'll bring the fighting to an end when the military objectives are accomplished, and those objectives have expanded. We noticed the other day, Putin talked about now they're going to go after Novorossiya. Well, Novorossiya includes Kharkiv, Sumy, could include Chernihiv, and Dnipropetrovsk and Nikolaev down to the south, and Odessa. So Russia's now made it very clear they're not going to just stop at the Donbass. That's in the past. All this other territory is going to be consolidated as well.
And you think consolidated then also because the Donbas republics are already were made part of the territory of Russia through the constitution, right? They amended the constitution saying these 4 parts are part of it as well. Do you think we will see a repeat of that with other territories, or is it going to be a situation of occupation?
No. I think you're going to see the exact same thing. That they will give everybody a chance to choose, but they will initially control that territory. If the majority of the population says no, we want to stick with Ukraine, Russia will say, okay, we're out of here.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be. I mean, some form of buy-in from the population is needed, which is why, I mean, nobody that I've ever spoken to from the Russian side said that they would want to try to incorporate Western Ukraine into Russia because, well, they hate their guts to the core, right? So you wouldn't want to do all of that, but there needs to be some form of a way of making sure that what is left of Ukraine doesn't keep shooting missiles and drones at the motherland, right?
Yeah. They're working on that. They're also they're doing something even more basic. They're destroying every gas station in Ukraine, at least east of the Dnieper River. So nobody will be able to have any gasoline to drive around in. It's going to dramatically reduce mobility. And I think that applies also to diesel.
Which is, of course, like trying to intercept all of the supply lines.
Yes.
Well, I mean, and so all of this is happening while Western media is pretending that, I can't believe this, after 4 years, they're still pretending that Ukraine is now on the verge of winning. That's the main narrative at the moment. Putin is desperate, a desperate man, a drowning man. They put up these stupid pictures in foreign policy and whatnot, and they're celebrating in NATO. It seems to me a little bit like they're having these huge parties, but the music is not playing, and everybody understands that the music has stopped a while ago, but they're still doing the dance.
Well, it's a simple matter of stepping back, looking at the numbers, and asking the question. Even though the Alexander Stubb, the Finnish president, declared yesterday at the CNBC, "Oh, Ukraine has won. Not Ukraine's going to win. Ukraine has now won the war. You're saying, okay, they've not taken back a single bit of the territory that Russia has captured. And right now, there are the casualties. While the West is claiming Russia's suffering casualties at losses, that they lose 8 Russians to every 1 Ukrainian, it's just a lie. It's nonsense. Why? You got 3 ways that you're going to cause casualties: artillery fire, drone fire, and then glide bomb, FABs, glide bomb fire. On the artillery front, Ukraine's fired like 7 million shells. Russia's fired almost 24 million. So it's almost it's at least a 3.5 to 1 advantage to Russia. Same kind of advantage with drones. Russia can outproduce Ukraine and is using a wider variety of drones to attack Ukrainian positions. But the really devastating one that's causing the most casualties are the glide bombs. So those are conventional steel bombs that they've attached wings to it, and when they drop it, the Russians drop it out from like 50 miles to 100 miles out. And these shells are anywhere from 500 kilograms up to 3,000 kilograms. So the 3,000 is a big ass bomb. And so they're fired at locations where there are Ukrainian troops huddled inside, fighting off the Russians, and the building literally gets disintegrated. So God knows how many Ukrainians have been killed in that. But of that, Russia's launched since 2003 135,000, or between 125,000 and 135,000 drones or glide bombs. So this you get casualties that way. So there's no way. Ukraine doesn't have an answer to any of that. And then manpower. The Ukrainian army has been whittled down. At the start of the war, I think they had like 900,000 active and 1 million reserves. Now they're down to 600,000 and they don't have reserves. Russia, by contrast, has a manpower excess. They got 700 deployed to Ukraine, and they got another 900,000 active duty in reserve.
Larry, like what I don't get is that all of the things that you're saying now are completely. You can find that out with basically open sources. You don't
Right.
need to rely on any kind of special military intelligence. A bit of good analysis. We can do it from our screens, right?
Right.
So there must be people over there who understand all of that, right? And then you've got the propaganda, and what we're seeing is that the propaganda, this we will win, just one more day, that one is running itself out now, or I would believe it runs itself out, but the gap between the propaganda and the reality is now getting so large that mustn't these people have an approach at somehow mending this, because it's all going to come crashing down on their feet.
Yeah, it's going to take that to wake them up. I mean, I've been in a back and forth. I've been part of a discussion group, and it's filled with people who are Wall Street traders. People who are, some of them are the business television personalities, and there's a small group in there who are insisting that Ukraine's winning, Russia's losing, Russia's on the brink, Crimea's been shut down, they're collapsing. Meanwhile, I'm getting emails from an American expat who lives in Crimea, and he said, "Yeah, there's some problems, but it's not end of the world, and no, we're doing fine." So, this, but I've never seen it as a massive propaganda effort underway in order to convince the average person that Ukraine still has a chance. They still have a shot.
But then what's the next stage? Because if on the one hand, the military planners and so on, I mean, they must have an accurate picture, right? The people sitting there in Germany and in the NATO bunkers. On the other hand, you do the propaganda, and maybe these are two different arms. Probably they are different. Certainly,
Yeah.
they are different arms. But because NATO, one thing they do is they do think in narratives, and they do think about how to sell stuff. So what do you think they're going to do in order then to sell the collapse and of Ukraine? Is this going to be the moment when they're going to do something so dramatic that it will force Russia to attack Europe, and then so that they can say, "Look, we always told you they're so evil"?
Um, yes, I can't rule that out as a realistic possibility. The bellicosity emanating from Europe is truly remarkable, and that's why Sergei Karaganov said that we need to restore the deterrence where they are afraid of Russia, because right now they're not afraid of Russia. They've convinced themselves that Russia's a paper tiger and incapable of defeating them. And so you can't rule out that one of these days, one of the NATO countries is going to commit a provocation so great that Russia is going to respond by by hitting or attacking uh, targets inside, say, Germany or the UK or France.
The one that currently is starting to worry me the most is actually Finland. On the one hand, they've been changing their entire foreign policy, of course, from neutrality to NATO membership. Now they even
Right.
go as far as allowing nuclear. The US could now station nukes there if it wanted to. Plus, this really bizarre thing that until a year ago, nobody knew the name of the prime minister of Finland. He was just not there, and then suddenly he appeared on the big stage when the Europeans went to the US for the first time to sit at the desk of the boss. That's when Stubb appeared, and ever since Stubb has had this weird role because there's nothing really that makes him special within the club, but he's always been paraded around as if though he was being introduced as a new character. That worries me quite big time.
Yeah, yeah, no. Well, he's the one that declared, "Hey, Ukraine's won." And you're going, define winning for starters, and basically his definition of winning that Ukraine has won is because they haven't yet been forced to surrender.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, that's
Ukraine is
go ahead.
winning Ukraine is winning this war a bit like Finland won the Second World War, right? It's like
Right. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
And maybe that's what he's based them on. They're always told, "Hey, we won over the Soviets," and it's like, well, no, you didn't, but uh, you've um, you convinced yourself otherwise. I mean, it's absolutely crazy that these are not uneducated people with some mental defect, but they sure have embraced um, this narrative and this propaganda.
yeah. So, is there anything else that you're looking at the moment that you think is actually important to
Well,
get where the West is at? Because I think it's getting closer and closer to the brink actually, and they seem not willing to even hit the brakes.
yeah. So when Putin used the term the other day, Novorossiya, that Russia is going to take Novorossiya, uh, that includes Zaporizhia, uh, it includes Odessa, Dnipro, or Dnipropetrovsk, and Mykolaiv. So it's an expansion. And I think ultimately Russia's going to now take Kiev as well. They may return it at some point, but I think they're going to take it. And it's important to note Peskov, the Putin spokesman, in 2 consecutive days has said this is now a war, not a special military operation. This is a war. And so I think Russia is going to mobilize and treat it as a war.
Yeah, which changes the operational protocols completely. Andrei Martyanov was pointing that out several times. There's a huge difference between simply an operation and a war. in terms of scale and ability of the troops, and legally what they can and cannot do.
Correct.
Okay, pretty bleak picture, my friend. It's getting late at your end.
Sorry I don't have better news for you, but it is what it is.
No, it is what it is. But in that case, let's wrap up here, and let me just again tell everybody that you have actually also in English. If you go to YouTube and Transition Protocol, you've got your this new channel, which is growing like crazy. 64,000 subscribers at this point, and it's only about 2 or 3 weeks old. This is the English channel, Transition Protocol, and then you've got it in several translations, now I overwrote it, like in Spanish and in German, in French, in Italian, in Portuguese. And I've got to put links to all of them below. Chinese, Japanese,
Arabic.
And by the way, if you're an English speaker and you want to subscribe to one of the foreign language channels, but you don't speak the language, please don't, because actually subscribing to it without watching it actually then tanks the channels. So only if you speak the language, and if you're going to watch it in that language, please subscribe. But if you're listening to this in French, Spanish, Chinese, please check out Transition Protocol. And anything else to add, Larry?
Nope, we'll just it is getting dark here. I'll lighten up the computer. Light, there he is. No, I think that even the greatest danger of escalation remains in Ukraine, because of what the Europeans are doing, and Russia now declaring it's a war. It's not a special military operation. That means Russia's going to use more force. As you know, they've carried out 3 consecutive nights of major strikes in Kyiv, and they're hitting significant industrial and military targets.
Yeah, and it's really sad. So the war is going to widen, and the Europeans are not getting any smarter, and they're still not willing to talk. Still, the only acceptable peace to them is the capitulation of Russia. It's quite incredible. Okay, my friend Larry Johnson, thank you so much for your time today.
Pascal, always a pleasure, brother. Thank you so much. Bye.